What's up everybody, welcome back. So in this video we're going to set up our own GIP models so we get that nice satisfying feeling if we shoot somebody in the arm and it starts flying off. Something like that. So if we have a full body model and we want to chop it up into little pieces, I'm going to show you how you can do it. So I have this zombie model from the marketplace, and let's say I want to get that satisfying feeling when I blow off an arm with a shotgun or something. So how are we going to do that? First of all, we need to get this guy into Blender, so I'm going to export him. Asset Actions Export. And I already have a folder set up, so that should be good. And I'm just going to use the default settings to export him. And that's good to go. So let's get Blender up here. Oh, come on. Don't struggle with me. There we go. So we have a new project. I'm going to get rid of all the default stuff. And first of all, I need to set my unit scale to 0.01 and make sure that it's set to meters. Then I can import my FBX. So let's import it. It's on my desktop here somewhere. So there's probably no animation in there, but whatever. So here we have the zombie model, and this is actually the model with all the LODs. So I'm going to get rid of the higher LODs, and I only want to edit LOD 0. So if I expand the collection over here, further down, you get the different LODs, and you can simply select them and delete them. And we have the highest quality model left. So let's say I want to be able to blow off a part of his arm, for example. So I'm gonna go into the edit mode for the mesh. And you want to make sure that you're in the faces mode. And then you can simply select the part that you want to be able to blow off. So I'm gonna make a cut somewhere right in the middle of the arm here. So that way we are halfway physics capsule. So we're going to get into that a little bit later, but the physics capsule is going to cover his entire upper arm, and I'm going to make the cut halfway, so we have some issues to deal with later. So first of all, let's get the arm, and I'm simply going to select the part that I want to be able to blow off. And let's make sure we have a nice clean cut at the end. So if I enable the X-ray view, I can select the faces on the back side as well, so that makes it a little bit easier. And if you shift select, you can add faces, and with control you can remove faces. So this should be the entire arm, and we're simply going to right click and then split the model. So nothing really seems to happen, but if you hover over the model and you press the L key on your keyboard, then it will select the part of the model that you split off, and on the other side you can select the rest of the model, so that way you can see it worked. So let's save this file first, and let's call this my zombie full body. So we have that stored. Now the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the arm, so I'm going to press the L key and I'm simply going to remove it. So to make sure there are no vertices and stuff left behind, I'm going to go into the X-ray mode and into the vert mode over here, and then simply drag, and as you can see there's a few left over here, so make sure you delete everything. That should be good. Now we want to fill up this gap in the arm over here, and I can show you how to fill it up, but unfortunately I can't really tell you how to texture it properly, so you might have to check another tutorial for that. But I can show you how to fill the gap, so we're gonna do that, and unfortunately I'm gonna have to leave the rest to somebody else. So we're simply gonna shift select all of the edges at the end here. So we have the entire loop selected, and then you simply want to right click and you want to fill it, and that should fit in the gap. And if that doesn't work, sometimes if you cut the body in half on the stomach, for example, and you have a bit more complex thing to fill, then you might want to use the bridge edge loops. So those are two options that will work most of the time to fill in the gaps. So in this case, fill should work, and we have the arm filled up. So you might want to add a nice bloody texture here or something like that. But for now, I'm simply going to select the faces, and I'm going to go to UV and Smart UV project them. So at least it won't look stretched. And regarding other materials and textures, you would have to dive in another tutorial, unfortunately. So we have this guy set up, and we're going to go back to the edit mode. And first I'm going to save him as a different file. So that's my zombie arm off. And now we can export them. So select the mesh and shift select the armature, and then we're going to go to the export FBX. So for the settings, I usually select the selected objects and then the armature and the mesh only. Transform, this should be default. For the geometry, you want to set the smoothing to faces, so you won't get a smoothing group error. And for the armature, this should be default as well. And then I'm not going to export any animation stuff, so simply deselect that. And that should be good to go for the settings. So we can export him, FBX arm off, that's fine, export. And we are good to go. So let's get the full body guy back in here. And now we want to keep the arm, so we're going to delete the rest of the zombie. So simply press the L key to select all of this stuff. And delete it. So again, make sure there's nothing left. So we have a bit of the eyes and things here. So make sure that everything is gone. So in the X-ray mode, into vertices, and then just shift select all of it. So there's a few left over here as well. There we go. So this isn't actually the cut that we made, so we need to remove a bit of the arm over here as well. So this is the cut that we made. So this is the one I'm going to use. So we're going to go back into the edge mode over here. So that's the middle button. And now we can select the edge and we can fill it up. There we go. Right click and fill. And simply Smart UV project them to avoid the worst. And that's good to go as well. So go back into the object mode and let's save them first. So that's my zombie arm left. And then we need to get the armature back here. So select the mesh and the armature. You can simply keep everything, that's fine. And simply export it. So export FBX. Again, make sure you get the correct settings over here. And we're going to export the arm left. And that should be good to go. So I'll see you guys back in Unreal, and we're going to import them and set everything up in here first. So let's drag them in here. And make sure that you select the correct skeleton so you can use all of the original animations again. And let's see, you don't need to create materials, that's fine. So it didn't find the correct materials, so let's plug them in here quickly. And that should be good. So as you can see, the gap in the arm is filled up. The texture is horrible, but at least there's no gap, so could be worse. So let's go into the full body one and let's select the correct material in here as well. So now we need to set up our enemy. Let's dive into the blueprint. And the first thing we're going to do is replace the mesh. So we have the full body mesh. Let's get rid of him and replace him for the one with the arm off. And now let's add the arm. So with the mesh selected, I'm going to select another skeletal mesh, and that's going to be my arm left. So we can simply select the model over here. And now we need to make sure that it's also animated. So let's go to the construction script and we're going to drag in the arm left and the mesh. And if you drag in from the arm, you can set the master pose component. So the target is going to be the arm model. And the new master pose component is the mesh. So this one actually has the animation blueprint assigned and the arm doesn't. But now both of them will use the same animation blueprint, so everything works with one animation blueprint. So as you can see, mesh selected over here, and that one has the animation blueprint assigned. And for the arm, there's nothing in here, but we use the master pose component to fix that. So that's set up correctly. Now we need to go into our character and make sure that we have a bullet trace event or something where we hit the zombie. So if you fire, you hit your zombie, and you want to make sure that you pass on your hit result to the function that actually takes care of damaging. So I have a take damage function over here for the zombie, and right now all it does is deleting the zombie. So I have added the hit result as an input, and we need to make sure that we plug it in over here. So this is the hit result that returns from your fire weapon trace. And if we have that in place, then we can break the hit result over here, and that will return a hit bone name. So that's over here, and we can check those bone names in the physics asset, and we can make sure to check what we hit. So this doesn't actually refer to the bones of the skeleton, but this refers to the capsules on your physics asset. So this is the physics asset for the zombie, and if you select one of them, you'll see over here, this uses the name of the bone it's attached to. So that's why it returns bone names, but you don't actually hit the bones. So you can never hit the finger, for example. This will always return the hand capsule. So these are all of the bones that you can hit. And we're going to use the upper arm left over here to register our GIP model. So if we hit this capsule, we know we want to split off the arm. So that's upper arm left, all lowercase. So we're simply going to compare it, upper arm left. And if we hit the guy in the arm, we're going to make sure that it pops off. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag in my mesh, and we want to replace the physics asset. So let's get that out of the way first. So over here we have two models right now. We have the arm off and the arm, and you might think this will also combine the physics asset into one new physics asset. So over here we imported the models, it created the assets without the arm, and for the arm it created only the arm. But those won't combine. So if I go into game now and I try to shoot this guy in the left arm, it will never register. It doesn't have any collision. It will only apply the physics asset for the main mesh. As you can see, I can hit him over there. So what we want to do is go into our zombie character over here and select the main mesh and go to physics. And if you expand this further over here, then you can override the physics asset. So we want to assign the full body physics asset to this guy. So the original one that came with the model. And now we can hit him everywhere. But if we shoot off his arm, we want to update it to the new physics asset that doesn't have the arm collision. Otherwise we can shoot him in the arm he doesn't have anymore. So we're going to fix that first, and we're going to set our new physics asset. And simply plug it into the true pin, and we're going to set it to the arm off physics asset. So one little side note, if you import these models, it will generate physics assets, but as you can see, they aren't as good as the one that came with the model. So that's this one. This is actually kind of decent setup. It could be better. There's some gaps and stuff in here, so but the feet aren't huge and things like that. So what I normally would do is simply copy this full body one and delete the arm capsules and create a new one that way. but in the video I'm going to be lazy and just use the auto-generated one. So over here I'm going to replace the physics asset for the mesh to the arm off model. Then we want to drag in the left arm, and we want to do a few things to that. So the first thing we want to do is remove the master pose component. So we're going to simply set it again, but plug nothing in here. Then we want to set the collision profile. So set collision profile, and we're going to do that by name. And the name for the profile is going to be ragdoll. So that's a default profile. It should be in your project. And after that we can enable the physics. So set physics enabled. So simulate physics is the correct node. Set simulate physics, this one. And we're gonna simulate. And then you could choose to also detach it. I think it detaches it when we simulate physics, but it doesn't hurt to do it anyway. So usually I add a detach from component over here. It doesn't hurt, so why not? And then you could do something like add an impulse or add an impulse at location if you want to make the body part fly off a bit further as well. We're not going to do that right now. So this is the default stuff that you really need. So I think this should work. We have the check in here. So let's see what happens if we shoot this guy in the arm. Nothing happens. Awesome. So let me see. Arm off. I plugged in all of this stuff. Rectal, arm left. Okay. I'll take a quick look. I'll be back in a second. Over here it would have worked. I added an extra P in here, so that was a screw up. And right now, if we check it in game, I should be able to shoot off his arm. So there we go, that works. And that actually isn't too bad. So a lot of the times when you do this, you get a lot of stretching from the vertices at the end of the model. So it will look weird and you get all of these verts flying off in the air and it looks horrible. So that's why I made the cut at the middle of the arm, because I was kind of hoping it would do that and we would need to fix that. So we don't need to fix it, but I'm still going to show you how you can fix it. So over here, if you go to the physics asset for the body model, then you want to make sure that you add another capsule to the end. So if the verts are stretching, they are probably also weighted against the next bone in the skeleton. And there's no capsule for that, so that's why they stretch all in weird directions. So right now we have a hand and an upper arm capsule. So if this would be the case, then you would simply go to the show all bones. And you would go one bone up in the hierarchy, so that's the clavicle. And we're going to add a shape over here. So I'm going to add a sphere. And first I'm going to reduce the size a lot, so it's a lot smaller. Then I'm gonna move it inside the other capsule. So it's inside the arm capsule. And then over here, I'm gonna right click and go to constraints and constrain it to the capsule that's below it. So in this case, that's the upper arm. And then you want to select the constraint over here and you simply want to lock it all the way up so it doesn't move. And then you could also select the sphere over here, so the actual collision mesh, and play around with the mesh if that turns out to be an issue, but it depends on the model if you need to do that or not. So you can change the mass and how much it affects the center of gravity. So if you add a capsule over here, then that will fix the stretching for the model if you detach it. So I think we have pretty much everything covered, and in this case the setup is pretty simple. So this would get a lot more complicated when you start shooting off multiple limbs and you still want to get the correct physics asset. So you need to create some data tables or structures or things like that. So then things are going to get a little bit more complicated, but actually shooting off a limb isn't too bad. So thanks for watching, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye bye.